So we had a couple of big economic stories that we wanted to bring to you this morning. First one caught my eye in the New York Times about Goldman Sachs and how they have foreclosed on some 10,000 homes for quote-unquote consumer relief. And if you read through this, it's a little bit confusing. But essentially what happened is this. Because of their role in bad behavior in the 2008 financial crisis, which was all, of course, about home ownership, because of that, their penance was that they had to take on some of these distressed mortgages. Well, what have they been able to do? They've turned that around and made it into this big profit-generating business for themselves, including foreclosing on some 10,000 homeowners. So it's just another example of, even when Washington tries to punish these people, they end up actually rewarding them. They turned it into a lucrative business opportunity.
These people always win. So this was a penance. They were supposed to pay $1.8 billion in loans.
In consumer relief. That's what ended up 10,000 foreclosures.
And now they're foreclosing on these 10,000 homes because they need cash. They're profiting off of the fact that they basically, their mortgage, they talked to a homeowner whose mortgage was bought by Goldman Sachs as part of this relief program and had his house foreclosed upon, sold, everything's getting bundled up, getting financialized. It's just the peak story of this. And of course, what are these people doing right now? They're sitting pretty. They're fine. They're not affected by the fact. They make money when you lose your home. That's as clear these people make more money as everybody else is getting out of work, as the unemployment rate skyrockets, and they make money off the fact that they had to be punished for their role in the 2008 financial crisis. They will always make the money.
That's the thing. And that's why I thought this story was so important, because it highlights this dynamic we've seen in this crisis, which is while you're losing your job and people are just getting hosed across the board, losing the job, losing hours. I was just reading this story about how they closed an entire highway in Vermont in anticipation of the lineup of cars for a food bank. Like, that's the reality for most people. And for those at the very top, it's another opportunity to profit. The billionaires are getting even more billions. So it's this heads we win, tails you lose dynamic in our economy that no matter whether it's boom times or bust times, those at the top are poised to profit.
Yeah, exactly. And what is Washington doing about it? Well, we have some good news and some bad news. I guess, what should we start with? The good news?
Let's start with why not?
All right. So Rob Portman, GOP senator from Ohio, actually has a new proposal out, which I wanted to give them credit for. So what they're talking about, as we've talked about the work incentives, unemployment, and all of that, almost certainly at this point, unemployment extension not going to be in the next bill, was something I'm fine with, as long as they provide actual relief in order to get people back to work and make sure businesses don't have to compete, etc. What they're talking about here is paying people an additional $450 per week who are going back to work to these businesses. Now, this is important because it means that the businesses, which, as I've talked about and we have, is that they're not well capitalized, is that they don't have a lot of demand, they don't have a lot of profit. If you can bolster Americans' payroll in this time, especially in order to get back to work, that very much helps the business, and it makes it so that it's a better deal for the worker.
Yes. So I'm fine with that idea, but like a lot of things we've covered, it doesn't really make sense on its own, because it sort of buys into this assumption that, like, oh, we have such high unemployment because workers are like on the dole, happy making their extra $600.
Yeah, that's not true.
Rather than the fact that you have, a mass depression situation from which we're not going to quickly recover. So this covers that piece of, like, whatever portion of workers could get a job but aren't doing so because they're getting more money on unemployment. So I don't know how ultimately economically impactful it is. If you paired that with more relief for people, a jobs program, UBI, if you paired it with a more fulsome economic package, that would make sense, given the fact that even in the best of circumstances, we're going to continue to have very high unemployment. This obviously doesn't do anything for those individuals. Then it makes sense. But to me, as a standalone piece, I think it kind of misses the crux of what the real problem is.
And this is the issue. They're all missing the crux. The easiest way to take care of all of this, as we have said from the very beginning, is to just pay people's payroll. 80% of that.
It's so complicated.
Why is that so difficult? And actually, this is something I talked about on my podcast with Heather Long. She's a Washington Post economics reporter. She made this great point. What was the government the best at this entire crisis? Not PPP, nothing. It was cutting checks. That was it. That was the easy. That actually got it done in what, 2-3 weeks?
Yeah.
It's millions of Americans.
And we were skeptical.
Yeah, I was skeptical. I was like, I don't think these people have the capacity to do that. So if that's what they're really good at, fine. Let's cut checks.
Just do it.
Do business. It's not difficult. We have a tax rebate system. IRS has all these people's information, et cetera. You can just, boom, put the cash in the business bank account, puts legal stipulations on that. They have to pay workers, cover payroll, et cetera. Boom, we're good to go. And it's just, if we kept that going, then you don't have to worry about all this, get back to work, not get back to work.
Let's have an incentive on this. And
It's all BS. It's just all AstroTurf. And now we're setting up this highly complicated situation.
Made this like Rube Goldberg type.
Yeah, you're like...
program that no one can figure out, that doesn't work properly. It's just, you're
like, so if I get back to work, I'm going to get this amount of money, and the business is going to pay you less because they know that you're getting $450 a week, blah, blah. Hey, look, it's all too complicated. And by the way, this is a good proposal, but there's a bad proposal.
Well, I know you're going to be excited about this one, Saagar.
Okay, let's throw it up. What is it?
So this is bipartisan group of senators, including some fan favorites like Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, and also Ben Sasse and Tim Scott of South Carolina. They are proposing to give workers who lost their jobs a $4,000 tax credit, which they can use to upgrade their skills, Saagar. The answer has arrived. Why didn't I think of this before? This is such an incredible and far-reaching proposal that will totally, totally work.
So we're back to 2008 BS. Skills gap. It's all about the skills gap. There's a skills gap. Skills gap is code for we don't want to pay you, and we want to continue to offshore your jobs, and we want to make sure that you're not have any protections in your economy whatsoever. The skills gap is fake. It's a completely fake concept.
Yes,
and
true.
it's just it is used by higher ed and all these other people in order to bilk the government for billions and billions of dollars in tax credits and all these other different. And this just, it just buys into a fake way of looking at the economy.
Well, and look, in a normal time, you could forgive some people for being like, maybe the skills gap is the thing. Maybe we have all these highly paid jobs and mismatched skill. Like maybe you could buy into that.
Yeah.
But it is so obvious that is not what's going on here. You have a pandemic. It's killed almost 100,000 Americans. Right. We've had a government shutdown of the entire country. That is why people do not have jobs, not because they don't have the right skills, sellable skills into the pandemic economy.
For people who claim to be free marketists and fundamentalists, etc., it all comes down to a wage. If the wage is high enough, I guarantee you people will learn the skill pretty quickly. The whole skills gap thing is complete BS.
$4,000 is so pathetically inadequate. And not even a direct pay, it's a, tax credit BS.
There you go.
Great stuff, guys. Nice work on that. We're rising for you after this.